So, JUCK over.
We cannot allow everything to be stripped away from us because they change the formats around us, the traditions, the stadiums, the uniforms, the rivalries. We allow them to devalue it. We lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. And welcome to JUCK on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me today as we continue to go through our position groups on the Ohio State football team. Today, we get to wide receivers, which is always a fun and positive conversation. Got a couple recruits to talk about as well. We also have some college football discussions going on. And the Big Ten and the SEC on Tuesday started a big meeting with the rest of their underlings in college football to tell them that they want the playoffs seeded 1 through 12, as do the rest of us, well, most of the rest of us, in 2025. And they're going to ask them to straight up change that now. Now, we know that that is a 2-year contract that has to be a unanimous vote to change that. And there's no way that the Big 12 or the group of 5 teams want that to happen. What will they do? Say no, screw off? Or will they try to play ball? If they try to play ball, maybe they try to get some concessions from the Big 10 and the SEC somewhere down the road. But they're giving up $8 million if they say no to, if they sign off on that right now. They got $8 million when Boise and Arizona State got those buys last playoffs. So they're going to give that up. What are they going to get in return? Can they come up with some arrangement with the SEC and the Big Ten? I'm going to guess that they are going to come up with an agreement somehow with the Big Ten and the SEC because they're probably quite scared right now as to the future of how this thing's going. The Big Ten and the SEC also expected to present the idea of moving to 14 teams and the automatic bids, the automatic qualifiers that we've been discussing, the 4 for the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC and Big 12, 1 for the group of 5, and then 1 at-large bid for a total of 14 teams. Now, the Big Ten and the SEC have already talked amongst themselves and agreed upon what they want. Then they had a conference call over the weekend with the ACC and the Big 12 and left out all the smaller ones. So now everybody gets together. We've done this in stages here on a need-to-know basis. So we're waiting to see what comes out of that meeting. But we have a couple other meetings going on. The Rules Committee for college football also meeting. And the biggest thing on their docket seems to be how they're going to get rid of faking injuries, flopping to slow down offenses. The SEC, since maybe the middle of last season, Commissioner Greg Sankey came out and said that he's going to start publicly reprimanding coaches whose teams do this, suspend them if necessary. And the American Football Coaches Association has come out and formally proposed a new medical stoppage where if you're a player in question, so you go down with an injury, you're now out for the rest of the series, not just a play. The entire rest of the series, you are out. If you are cleared medically, then if I'm your coach, I can get you back in the game that same series, but I got to burn a timeout. So there's a big penalty for me as the coach if I'm flopping, if I got guys flopping and I'm telling them to flop. I got to burn a timeout to get you back in that series, or I got to just accept that you're out for that entire series. Now, I guess you could get away with this if you're putting in a backup just for the purposes of flopping, etc., but it makes it a whole lot harder. And I like it. There is one drawback. The one drawback is if you got a player out there who really is injured, he's going to want to fight through that injury where he otherwise might have just gone down because he doesn't want to miss an entire series. And, I don't know. How do you weigh that? What do you think? Players have been trying to hide concussions forever. That's obviously a bad thing. And I think we'll see some of that, but I just don't know any other way around it. I guess you could deal with the faking of the injuries and continue to just have it being around in the game. I mean, it is a form of comic relief, right? We certainly get a laugh with that because it is so obvious and funny at times. But I'd like to see it done with, and I think this is a pretty good proposal to do that. We also have an update on our third meeting from last week of the SEC athletic directors who were discussing the new proposal for the enforcement of the rules surrounding the revenue sharing. And these are rules that have been proposed from the board that Ohio State athletic director Ross Bjork is a member of. There's a bunch of college football leaders, Ross Bjork one of them, and they are tasked with how they're going to come up with the new rules surrounding revenue sharing. That $20.5 million salary cap. How are they going to make sure nobody goes over it? What are the penalties going to be? How are they going to investigate tampering? How are they going to make sure that boosters and companies aren't just giving fake NIL deals when it's really pay for play? Now, I've gone through that entire plan. I'm going to go through it again in a longer form video. So those of you who aren't interested can go check that out. I'll probably put that over at JUCK on college football. But I think it's a really interesting plan. However, it is of note, they will need help from Capitol Hill to make this thing work so they can get around or there are going to be lawsuits for all this stuff unless they get help from Capitol Hill. And there still will be. But Ted Cruz has come out and repeatedly said that he's going to be assisting him and his colleagues, college football, in making this thing happen. And why wouldn't he? Like, one thing we know is this is a winner with the public. The public wants tampering gone. They want pay for play gone. And one thing we know about politicians is they want to put a D or an R next to a bill that's really popular, that has a lot of public support. So I think that they're going to be working hard to make sure that happens. And I think they're going to get something passed. And if they get it passed, this is going to be a new LLC that's going to have a CEO, and they've got a plethora of new plans and punishments that we'll go over in the long form video. But before we get to those wide receivers, let's please like and subscribe to JUCK on Bucks so you don't miss any of your 4th to 7th favorite college football show, as we are rising up those boards. Used to be your 6th to 9th favorite college football show, continuing to climb with a mix of entertainment, analysis, passion, and trolling. I don't think I troll. You guys tell me I do sometimes. But speaking of trolling, look at these little Alabama baseball sons of guns. You remember I asked you the other day, how is the Ohio State baseball team? Unfortunately, you told me it was terrible. You could have just lied to me. I never would have checked. But look what these kids did. They put this picture out. Look at that expletive on the left, the O. They're talking about Ohio State. They beat them, and then they posted that, and then made an apology for embarrassing Alabama. They got caught up in the moment. But nah, I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that from the Gumps. The Gumps over here saying F the O. Nah. But let's get to these wide receivers. Heading into the year 2024, we knew Emeka was a projected first rounder. Carnell Tate was that next first round dude. And freshman Jeremiah Smith was the dude. Different. And we all knew it. We just were waiting for the rest of the country to find out. And it was pretty damn satisfying when they did. I don't think we need a full recap of the 2024 wide receiver room because it was just ridiculous. We all know that. Let's go straight to 2025. Look at that room, look at the backups, look at the freshmen, and then look at recruiting. So Jeremiah Smith obviously enters the best player in all of college football in his second year. So cool to think about that. But 76 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 15 touchdowns as a true freshman. Carnell Tate in 2024, 52 receptions, 733 yards, 4 touchdowns. And now you've got Brandon Inniss, as he will step into that slot receiver role. I think we're going to see a lot of Bryson Rodgers in that role as well. But Brandon Inniss was the highest rated wide receiver in 2023 over Carnell Tate. The fact that Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, and Jeremiah Smith were playing on the same South Florida Express 7-on-7 team and now are together in college football, I think is one of the cooler stories on this team. And the picture of those three on their official visit together is so funny when you look at Jeremiah looking like this little kid compared to what he looks like now with the three of them. And I'll pull that picture up. But Brandon Inniss, just 14 receptions for 176 yards last year. This dude is a football player first. He's a great leader. He's tough as nails. He's got a great personality, great route runner, great hands. The top end speed is lacking, but when we go to Bryson Rodgers, was in the same class of 2023 with Carnell Tate, with Brandon Inniss, and Noah Rodgers, who's since transferred out to NC State. Bryson, incredibly shifty, really great speed, great hands. He only had 5 receptions for 46 yards last year. Now, these are two prospects that were really far away as far as ratings. Brian Hartline did a great job identifying Bryson Rodgers. And when you watch this kid at practice, he's electric. He really is. He's just waiting to get his opportunity. And I think he's going to be something. In fact, looking forward, I would venture to guess that he translates better to the NFL than Brandon Inniss does. So those are the two slot guys. Now, Mylan Graham was the 5-star freshman that Hartline discovered out of Indiana. He was basically a no-name, low-rated prospect when Hartline found him, and he really impressed. Didn't even enroll early last year, but when he came in the preseason, he was just wowing the heck out of everybody. Hartline called him a perfectionist, says he's too hard on himself, which you love to hear. He's a total workout warrior. He's long, ridiculous feet, great hands. He is going to play. He has to play this year. He absolutely has to play. You just cannot risk a guy that talented not playing in year 2, or you're probably going to lose him. So we're going to see some more Mylan Graham, that's for sure. You've also got David Adolph, who was a walk-on and worked himself onto scholarship in the Ohio State wide receiver room, which says it all about him. Then you got your freshmen, Quincy Porter, Des Jones, Phillip Bell, and Bodpin Miller. Now, Quincy Porter was my number 3 wide receiver in the class of 2025 when he was rated just inside the top 20 wide receivers in the country. He finished at top 3. This guy, it's just undeniable. 6'3", 11-second 100-meter. He's muscular. He can and does use his size very naturally to play a version of what I call bully ball that you rarely see at the high school level. Sick body control and hands, as well as wheels and shiftiness after the catch. Sideline control. So he was just a 4-star inside the top 20. And as the cycle went on, he ends up going to the Army-Navy game. And he goes to the Army-Navy game and starts just burning and destroying 5-star DBs, so much so that he ends up finishing as the top 3 wide receiver in the class in a 5-star, which is awesome. You love to see it. Quincy Porter had 4 state championships at Bergen Catholic in New Jersey. Last year, 57 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns, which is just totally legit at high school. This is a guy that could have started anywhere as a true freshman in 2025. He could have been Drew Aller's number 1 wide receiver this year, playing for a national championship over there. He was down to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and then Alabama came in late. Instead, he comes to Ohio State without the best NIL package. And unless we see an injury, he's not going to play a ton. And we know that. And to me, that says a ton about this guy. The situation that he wants to be in, he wants to get better. And the situation that Brian Hartline has now made for himself, where you are attracting guys that are as talented as Quincy Porter and accept that they're probably not going to play as a freshman for less money than they could get somewhere else because they just want to come and be part of that room and get developed like that. It's just, I mean, what more could you ask for? It's the best, single best, number 1 run position group in all of college football. It's just unbelievable. And they're even more excited, these wide receivers, about Brian Hartline being the offensive coordinator. 4-star Des Jones is a pretty electric slot guy, a ton of high school production, DePaul Catholic in New Jersey. And DePaul Catholic, high-end high school football. Deshaun Stewart, Buckeye safety, was on his team, as well as 2 Notre Dame commits. They win the state championship this year after being the runner-up the year prior. And he and Deshaun both chose Ohio State over Penn State. Then you got 4-star Phillip Bell out of California. He is kind of an Emeka style, size, and everything. Not a blazer, not huge, got a lot of polish, great hands, great body control, great attitude. I think we're going to see something out of Phillip Bell in a couple of years. And he was down to Ohio State and USC. And then you got BP Miller, who is one of the more fascinating players on this team. 6'4", very slim quarterback in high school, total freak athlete. And I mean a freak. I've not seen anyone run like BP Miller from a quarterback position since Lamar Jackson. Like, that's how freaky he is. He practiced as a wide receiver for 1 month, came to Ohio State for 2 camps, and he got pulled off the field in the second camp and told Brian Hartline was offering him. That's how impressive this guy was. He had ACC quarterback offers. Boston College wanted him to come be a quarterback. Nope. I want to be in that room. I want to be part of that. So much fun to have a guy like that in the room that is on the several year plan. He's not going anywhere. He wants to come learn how to play the position. And I think that's really cool. So Brian Hartline moves to the offensive coordinator role, and you got Devin Jordan there helping him, of course. And now you bring in another coach to help them out, another analyst, and that is Colin Keanu, who was most recently at Nevada working with wideouts and quarterbacks. Here's a picture of him from when he had transferred from, I think it's Sacramento State or something, Mount Sac, which is a small school, to Division I in the MAC at the University of Akron. So he came, played for my Zips. I didn't know him, but he was in the city with me, guys. So we like Colin Keanu. He's definitely welcome. And that is what we're looking at for the wide receiver room. Now, as we move forward into the class of 2026, of course, currently and since 2023, Chris Henry Jr. has been committed. Formerly the number one wide receiver in the class. Actually, he was the number one overall player in the class at one point. He has now moved down to the number 2 wide receiver via the composite, the number 3 wide receiver for 247. And On3 just updated their rankings. He's now the number 4 wide receiver in their class, which is kind of comical. But he was injured last year. So at 6'5", 205, with great speed and great body control, he is a total difference maker. He's not a generational talent like Jeremiah Smith, but maybe that next rung down, whatever the heck you figure that rung to be, that is what this dude is. And he is being obviously heavily pursued now by Oregon. They're making some inroads, as is LSU and a couple of other schools, but mainly Oregon. Now, last weekend, apparently he took Ohio State commit out of his bio on social medias and took down a picture of Brian Hartline smoking a cigar. Whatever that means to anybody, I don't know. But this thing is always going to come down to the very end. And when you come down to the end, you're talking about a very long relationship with Brian Hartline and Ryan Day. And you're talking about a kid whose sister plays on the Ohio State basketball team. Also, a kid who grew up a good portion of his life in Ohio and now at Mater Dei. Originally from North Carolina. He claims North Carolina as his home state, not Ohio, but spent enough time in Ohio in a little bit of older years where I'm guessing Ohio probably still feels quite like home to him. Now, Mater Dei, obviously the Mater Dei curse, right? The Buckeyes cannot pull kids out of Mater Dei. We thought we were going to break that curse last year with running back Jordan Davison. That, of course, didn't happen. However, I think the Buckeyes had that commitment. Had they wanted it, they kind of pulled back at the last second because of the way Davison's camp acted and a couple of issues with him. So you got the Mater Dei curse that you got to break with Chris Henry Jr., but it's not just him. As one of the top prospects in that class that they're recruiting at wide receiver is his teammate, who we'll go over in a second. But first, let's hit on the other committed prospect, and that's Jaden Ricketts. Jaden Ricketts, an Ohio kid from, I'm not even going to pronounce it because you guys always tell me I get it wrong no matter how I say it. He's from Pataskla, Ohio. Not an incredibly high rating, but a 4-star kid, 6 foot 187, and he is a flat out burner. This is a kid who earned his offer camping at Ohio State. And we've talked about the new wide receiver philosophy and how Brian Hartline's recruiting here. He wants a couple of local guys, a couple of undervalued guys that have the potential, that aren't ready to go, but he can put on the 3 and the 4 year plan that will stay in the program and develop. So he sees the unpolished gem in Jaden Ricketts, and who could argue with anything Brian Hartline says when it comes to young wide receivers. So excited about him. Now, the next guy is Caden Dixon-White, not committed, and this is Chris Henry Jr.'s teammate, and he's a guy who is big in on the Buckeyes. He's a South Florida Express kid, and he's a top 100 player, 4-star from Mater Dei, 6 foot 192. Let's watch a couple of clips of him playing. Hate those helmets, man. That is one hideous high school uniform, that's for sure, out there at Mater Dei. But a great set of hands, really quick, really fast, I mean, you see a catch like that, and all right, that's a pretty polished high school kid. All right, next we got Braden Robinson, and Braden Robinson is out of Red Oak High School in Texas. Now, Braden Robinson to me kind of fits what I think Heartline's looking for. So if he gets his, Chris Henry Jr. ready to go right now, and he gets his Caden Dixon Wyatt pretty much ready to go right now after about a year, and then you add in the more developmental guy, Jaden Ricketts, I think that Braden Robinson is a guy that kind of fits in with this role too, but he brings something totally unique that we've not seen in quite a while. So for starters, upon getting his offer, he told me receiving that offer was definitely a big deal, knowing that only so few get the opportunity to play for the university. It's definitely been a blessing. And then he told me that he met Heartline as a freshman, and he's always kept it real and genuine with his family, which he loves. So he loves Ohio State. He's got 4 officials scheduled, and Ohio State one of them. So out of Texas, 4-star, top 300 player, 5'8", 160 pounds, 5'8", 160. Now, that's a wide receiver we have not had in quite some time. Always love a kick returner. When we talk about, this year, looking at Turbo Rogers coming in as a freshman, as a running back, when you got that skill, I would sure love to see the Buckeyes take a little more effort into the special teams room. But I would love to see a dynamic kick returner. But this dude is just a burner with great hands, great route running, and he also is pretty physical. Like he wants you to know he may be a little shorter, but he'll take your head off if you're in his way. And I really like that about his game. Just shifty as all get out, man. It's just been a while. It's been a while since we've had one of these types. These stud players as a kick return. Look at him blocking. Love that. Yeah, get him the ball in space. Good things are going to happen. That's a beaut right there. Love that. But there's one right here I'm waiting for where he runs somebody over at the goal line. Is this the one? This is the one. All right, catches the ball at the 9. 2 guys in his way. Nope, he gets in. So that's Braden Robinson. So we're just going to go over those 2 today, and we'll probably bring up a couple more here as we see some movement on a couple other guys. There have been some in this class that I thought were getting close, and then maybe it spread a little bit. But as of right now, I think these 2 are pretty high on the board, and would not be surprised if one or both of them ended up in the class, making another 4-man class. So that's our show today. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for stopping in to Juck on Bucks, and I'll talk to you soon. Juck on Bucks out.